116 politicians have signed an open letter to David Cameron, and they are raising their concerns about the situation in Gaza as pertains to areas of famine within the territory. That letter was published on the 28th of March. One of the signatories was Lord Alf Dubs, Labour peer and patron of the Refugee Council, who signed the letter. I should also flag up that this letter was signed by politicians across the political divide. Lord Dubs, thank you very much indeed for making time for us this afternoon.
Pleasure to be with you.
Can we start with you describing what the contents of the letter are?
We're seeing in Gaza an enormous human tragedy in that there isn't enough food, water, or medical equipment going into the region, and people are virtually starving. In fact, it is alleged that some people are starving. Now, that is a tragedy. It follows the tragedy of the Hamas attack on Israel on October the 7th. We mustn't forget that. But these are two tragedies. But at the moment, the ongoing tragedy, and there's still hostages being held, the ongoing tragedy is what is happening in Gaza and the fact that food is not getting in, water is not getting in, medical supplies are not getting in, and people are dying of starvation.
When I was reading this letter, I thought it was interesting that number one, it was cross-party, but number two, you felt compelled to write it. Given David Cameron has himself, has he not publicly, said that he recognises there is not enough aid going in. What do you want him to actually do as a result of this letter?
Well, I want him to take firmer action as regards Israel's refusal to allow aid in. I think we have to be upfront and say we cannot sit back and allow starvation to be used as a weapon of war by the Israelis. Millions of Israelis are also protesting about this. This is not just something in the West. The Israelis also don't like it. So there's widespread condemnation, and we've got to get food in, not just with airdrops, which are happening. Food has got to come in. There's a port in Israel which could supply food to Gaza. We want that opened, and we want the land crossings to be opened so that food and supplies can get in. There's a tiny fraction getting in now compared to what was necessary to keep Gaza going before this tragedy happened. So, we want urgent action by David Cameron. Yes, he's more or less said he agrees with what we're saying in the letter, but we want action by our government and other governments to actually force the Israelis to allow aid to get in.
Do you want the UK government to lift its suspension of aid money going to UNRWA?
Yes, I do. I think UNRWA, there were problems with UNRWA, but UNRWA was still the main UN agency that provided food and indeed education and other support to the people in Gaza. It was doing a good job. Yes, there were some people alleged by the Israelis to have taken part in the October the 7th attack. That is unacceptable. But given the very large staff that UNRWA has and the very valuable work they're doing, I think it's important that we resume support for UNRWA because they are the real United Nations agency to help starving people there, and indeed to help people with education and other things. So yes, of course. And in saying that, we are joined by many other countries who are also taking the same position. This is not uniquely a British initiative, it's an international initiative.
Lord Dubs, I have interviewed Israeli government spokespeople and the IDF on many occasions. They are adamant that they are doing what they can to allow aid in, whilst also, in their words, ensuring that the aid doesn't fall into the hands of Hamas. They vehemently deny claims that the Israelis are impeding the free flow of aid into Gaza. What would you say in response?
Well, I think all the evidence is that the Israelis are impeding the flow of food and other aid to Gaza. And the fact is, of course, if food goes in, Hamas will grab some of it. But food is food, and people who are starving need the food. And I think what we've got to do is to have a mega operation in order to bring food there. If Hamas have some of it, okay, it will still go to feed people. And I don't like Hamas. Hamas is a nasty, nasty, nasty organization. But the fact is that there are millions of Palestinians in Gaza who are suffering dreadfully, who are not Hamas supporters. They are human beings who want to stay alive, and we've just got to move fast to help them.
I'm sure you would have seen the story on the front page of The Observer yesterday, Lord Dubs, which went as follows. Alicia Kearns, the Conservative MP, says that David Cameron has received advice from government lawyers and that those UK government lawyers have, in their opinion, come to the conclusion that Israel is breaking international humanitarian law. She says that that information hasn't been made public. Do you believe that the advice of the UK government lawyers should be made public?
I think in this case it should be, yes. I think it's such a crucial issue, and I saw the article in the newspapers yesterday, and yes, of course it should be, and indeed Israel is behaving very badly. And of course the tragedy in all this is that Israel's own future is being endangered by what the Israelis are doing. I don't believe the Israeli government has the support of the majority of people in Israel anymore. The majority of Israelis want the hostages back, and they don't believe this slaughter of Palestinians and the starvation of Palestinians should continue. So, pretty well everybody except a minority in Israel, led by the government of Israel, are saying we've got to have a different policy. We've got to be humane. We've got to let food get in.
The question raised for the UK government as a result of that report in The Observer is as follows. If it is indeed the case that UK government lawyers have advised the Foreign Office that Israel is breaking international humanitarian law, there has been some debate as to whether or not the fact that the UK continues to allow weapons sales to Israel, whether or not that means that the UK may at some point be accused of being complicit in also breaking international humanitarian law. Is that a concern that you have?
Well, I think it is a concern, and I'm very much concerned about the supply of weapons, military equipment to Israel that is being used against the Palestinians in Gaza, and I think we have to be very, very careful. I think we probably should no longer sell arms and military equipment to Israel while this situation continues. So yes, it is a big concern, and we don't want to be complicit in this. But above all, this action in Gaza has got to stop. It's got to stop quickly because people's lives are in danger.
So would you be in favour of a suspension of arms licenses, allowing arms to be sold to Israel immediately, or is that something you believe should be considered in the future?
I think in conjunction with other countries, I think we should do it immediately because we are supplying military equipment that is being used by Israel against the civilian population in Gaza. And I think that should stop. Not a matter of sometime in the future. It should stop now. But of course, it'd be much better if we can do all this in conjunction with other countries who are also sympathetic to the position I'm describing. So yes, of course we should. Because look, every day that goes by, there are more Palestinians who are in danger. There are more Palestinians who are going to be bitter at the end of this. At some point, there has to be peace in the region. At some point, I believe there has to be a solution which gives the Palestinians their own state living alongside Israel. And everything that impedes that is damaging to the whole region and damaging to innocent people.